Today, it's all about Docs42 and Power Automate. Hello and welcome to this week's Docs42 class. My name is Lisa and I will guide you through the next 30 minutes where it will be all about automatic document generation without even one click. Everything will be done automatically for you. So let's have a look at the agenda on what's on for today for the next 30 minutes. So today, everything will be a live demo. We will show you how you can use Microsoft Power Automate with Docs42 online. We will set up a custom connector in MS Power Automate, and we will also set up a Docs42 flow with a trigger from SharePoint, Teams, or D365 CE. Today, the example will be from SharePoint with SharePoint data. But as here mentioned in the agenda, it could be any other D365 application as well, where you can trigger the Power Automate from. I'm going to switch off the camera again, so you have the screen in big and you can see everything in detail. Should you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, which you will find to your right. Great, so let's get started. And everything today will be in Power Automate. But let me explain you the scenario a little bit better on what we're gonna focus on today. So our scenario today, we have an employee list here within SharePoint, and we use it, for example, once a month to generate a report to see, okay, how have my employees performed, who will be there, who is eligible for promotion. So I have my achievement here, I have my employees, and I have pictures of them. And I usually generate a document already with Docs42 that I select everything or certain employees, and then I click my button here to have a document delivered. However, achievements changed, and I always want to have the latest information and the latest documents stored in my SharePoint. Hence, I'm going to set up a Power Automate connector and a Microsoft Flow that triggers exactly that and will generate my document. So to show you beforehand how the document will look like, I'm going to show you the template that will be used for generating. I've prepared that beforehand, and I have my employee list Docs42 template here in Word. That's my template, and I'm gonna generate it locally so you can see what document we can expect at the end of the flow that's triggered. So this is how my document will look like. I can see the achievement of my staff. Elena has 99%, for example, at the moment. So what you need to do in preparation beforehand, you need to have one Docs42 template, which you then upload to your SharePoint. So in our case, we have our Docs42 template library here within SharePoint, and then here we have our template. Good, so that's one prerequisite. Then what you also need in order for Docs42 Online to work with MS Power Automate, you need a Docs42 Online instance. So if you don't have one yet, if you want to test Docs42, we can of course give you one Docs42 instance, and then the management overview, the panel looks like this. Great. And what you will also need to do before you set up your custom connector is that within Azure Active Directory, here within the app registrations, you need to register Docs42 Online as an application. This is because we're using all the rights and all the security of Azure Active Directory. So you need to grant all the rights and contents here. Good, but now let's get started with the Microsoft Power Automate. So what we will do today is that we're going to create a custom connector. Also for that to say, at the moment, Docs42 connects to PowerAutomate via custom connector. However, we're always developing further and of course also in that direction. So stay tuned within the next weeks or month on which ways there will be to call Docs42 from PowerAutomate. But for today, we'll look at the custom connector. And that's starting by, we go to data and then we go to custom connectors. And then I'm going to set up one custom connector, one new custom connector. I go here and I'm going to create it from blank. And I'll give it the name employee webinar flow. That's what we're going to call it. Great, then I can upload a picture for it. I'm just going to do that so we always see which is our flow that we created. Then the rest, or like the details which are not necessary, I'm just going to leave out for now. What I need now is the host. So with which Docs42 instance we're going to generate those documents. So for that, I need exactly my Docs42 online instance. So the link to my Docs42 online server. And I need to add it in this format without HTTPS because we already selected that over there. Great. And then I'm gonna create the connector right away. So that's the first step. The next step now, since it's created, is that we need to set up the security settings. So I go to security. And then I need to choose my authentication, and we're going to choose OAuth 2.0. And then, since I mentioned before that we are working with Azure Active Directory and we take all the rights and security from there, we need to choose also here Azure Active Directory for our authentication. And now it asks us for the client ID and the client secret. And this is where it comes into play that we registered Docs42 as an application beforehand in Azure Active Directory. So I go to my AAD, to app registrations, and then I open my Docs42 online app. And from here, I can copy my client ID, app ID, and I'm just putting it in here. And then I also need a client secret, and that's also retrieved from my app in AID under certificates and secrets. You can always generate a new secret. So the login URL is staying the same, and also the tenant ID we can have as common, and then we will need to add the resource URL. The resource URL in our case is our SharePoint site, because we need to receive a token within our Azure Active Directory context. This is why we need to add our resource URL, the SharePoint we are working with and we are authenticating with. So that's that one. And then for the scope, that's also important. That's also our SharePoint, and the access is all sites right. Why do we need this? Because we're gonna generate a document and we're gonna save it and also write, if we want, to dynamic metadata with it. So that's important, all sites right. Besides that, you've already done that with it when you registered Docs42 online as an app within AAD. You also done those settings. And then I'm just going to update the connector. So I'm saving it. And then the next important part is the redirect URI, which we'll see in a second while it's updating here. This is where then again Docs42 online, so our app registration, comes into play. Good Wi-Fi, please don't leave me. Here we are back again, and now I can copy my redirect URL, and it's very important that we add that redirect URL to our Docs42 online app in AID under authentication. you'll need to edit. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is a little bit slow here. I hope it's recovering in a second, but basically within the redirect URI, we're adding what we've copied right now from Microsoft Flow, from Power Automate, and then we have it in the redirect URIs. And if you set up more connectors later on with Docs42, it you don't need to do it again, so you just need to copy it once. Okay. Wi-Fi, please come back. I'm just gonna go on F5 for a second. If not, I'm gonna try to change my connection. One. Now we're back. Great. So what I've copied from here, my redirect URL, we need to add here to, this is exactly this one here. We need to add it to a redirect URLs in here so that the whole that all the tokens can be given, that all the content is there. Great. Once this is done, we go back to our custom connector and then we go to definition. And this is where we set up on what should happen with our custom connector. First of all, we need to set a new action. And we call it action Docs42 webinar flow. And the operation ID will be webinar flow Docs42 EN. So it doesn't matter what you put in here. I just use that. And for that, we also need to define a request with our action here. So we go on request and then we go on insert from sample. And so here what comes into play is that Docs42 is a web service that can technically be called via REST or SOAP calls. And we have the option, we have a server test client, which will soon be called Server Designer, where we can easily set up our REST calls for our document generation calls. And I'm gonna show you how that looks like for our call today. Also a disclaimer here, what you see here, the server test client, I mentioned before, Server Designer, that will be completely, will have a new interface, new functionalities, and will be released in the next weeks. There will also be a Docs42 class on that. Great, so here we have our test client where we see the service URL, the Docs42 template, and what should be done. So we will have a SharePoint action that generates the document and stores it automatically in a certain SharePoint library. And if I click on REST URL, I have my REST URL here set up for me, and I'm just copying that. I say here, this is get, and I copy my REST URL in here, and then I also need to add a header, which is called accept. Now I'm importing it. So here I have my operation now set up, and now I could actually already go and test. However, to make the testing easier and the setup easier, I'm also gonna define my default values here. I'm gonna add them here. So I go here to operation, and I go on edit, and I'll put that one here, and my operation is generate document. So here it depends if you want to call a Word template, a PowerPoint template, or an Excel template. If it was PowerPoint, it would be generate slides. If it was Excel, it would be generate spreadsheets, because with Docs42, all three are possible. But here it's generate document. Then the doc template, we need to give the path to where we've stored our Docs42 template. And here it's important to say, if you have an URL where there's a space in between, be sure that you convert the space to %20 so that Flow and PowerAutomate can read the URL. It's there. Great, doc template. Then we need the SharePoint site where we generate the document. Here again, %20. That's added. Then we need to call the library. On which library we're going to save the documents. We will call it employee documents, our SharePoint library. Then the file name. It's an easy one. It's a static file name for today. You could also make it dynamic with some variables in there, but we're going to keep it easy today. And then the SharePoint action AID, we need to set on true. And then our header accept needs to be called application/JSON. Great. I'm going to update the connector here once again. And then we can already go ahead and test our application. Successfully updated. That looks good. So now we go to test. And now, so here we can see now that we have all the values, default values in here. I need to set up a new connection. So my AID connection with my user, with my account. Great, here we have it. Here's our operation, employee list, sales orders, employee documents, and I'm going to go on test operation. And that's where we see if our custom connector is working, if it does what we told it to do. Test is done, validation succeeded. It says that looks good already. So if we go to our employee list now, and if we check if the document was generated, it should be in there. So we have sales orders, employee documents, and yes, it worked. Our document is there, the employee list flow generated by me, because I've tested it with my account, because Azure Active Directory, of course. And here we have our document generated by our PowerAutomate. Of course, we don't want to just always go in here and test our connector to see if it works. We want to have that automatically happen from a flow. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to set up a flow, and I'm going to go for that to my flows. And then I go on new, and I'm going to go on automated from blank. This is where I'm going to create my flow. And I'm going to call it employee list webinar. And then I choose my trigger. So my trigger could be anything now. I want my trigger when a list item is created or modified from SharePoint. But it could, for example, also be when a quote is modified in Dynamics, when an invoice is modified, or whatever you choose to, you could have as a trigger here. We're going to do that with an item is created or modified, and we go on create. Good, and now we need to say, okay, which item on which site, and it will already propose to me some sites. So I'm going to go sales orders, and then I also need the list name, and the list name in our case is employees. So I'm adding employees. It's not yet suggested, but we can use it as a custom value. Great. And then we say, okay, when that is done, our next step is to call our Docs42 webinar flow. And here we see, this is where it's good that we've already put in the default values beforehand, so we don't need to do it here. Again, this is exactly where we see our call. So we save it. Saved, great. Just saving it once again and returning back there. So here I have it, and now we're gonna test it. So I'm going to my sales orders employee, and I'm gonna adjust Elena Heinzer, and I say She's performed so well. She has an achievement of 100%. Nice for her. So I'm saving that. And now in the background, the flow will be triggered. So the custom connector will do everything it's told. So getting the template from SharePoint, filling in the new data, generating the document, and then storing it in my SharePoint library. Good. And for that, let's check first here within our flow. I'm going to refresh once. And then I'm going to refresh all runs. And we see it is succeeded. It lasted 3 seconds. And we're going to check now if we also see that within our SharePoint library. And if we go on employee documents, we see, yes, a few seconds ago, the document was regenerated. And if we have a look, we can see it's updated. It's 100%. And of course, if you always want to keep the overview of what has happened, we have the version history here updated as well, where you can look at that and always go back to the document that was beforehand. So archiving and versioning history works as well. Good, and that's the flow. Set it within only 20 minutes. That's how easy and fast you can work with flows. Another example, what I could show you just quickly here, what other flows we have. If I go on team flows, like I have the sales quote to SharePoint, for example, where we are within a dynamic scenario when we say a quote is modified. So for example, you update the name of a quote, a discount, an item, whatever within Dynamics. Then the Docs42 flow as a PowerAutomate is called. It's generating a document from Dynamics CE and it's uploading and storing it to SharePoint. And if we have a look at that setup here, we see that we also have added some, of course, some flow parameters in here. So you can be dynamic, like here we have a dynamic input parameter, we have a dynamic name, and we're also writing dynamic metadata to the document which we're storing on SharePoint. So all of that is possible as well. Good, so much about the live demo. Let's do a quick recap on what we've done today. So today I've shown you how you can use MS PowerAutomate with Docs42 Online, how to leverage those powerful document generation possibilities, how to set up a custom connector. That's the way it works at the moment with Docs42, but as I mentioned, stay tuned. We're always developing further and how potentially it's going to be in future. I've shown you also how to set up a flow, which could be triggered from any action, be it SharePoint, be it Dynamics, be it something else, and to generate documents automatically. If there are some questions open, feel free to put them now in the chat or to reach out later on to me. And before we finish for today, some announcements. So we have the Docs42 classes as educational webinars for some time now. So we've had a lot of content, and every Wednesday a webinar for the last 3 or 4 months. You can find them all on YouTube. And also we will have 2 more in summer. One will be SharePoint Advanced, where we show you how you can insert site collections dynamically, how you can work with multi-value fields, and so on, manage metadata, and so on. And one will be the brand new server designer. So we have a lot of possibilities to test your codes before you put them live as well with our server designer. And yeah, if you need some further information, as I mentioned, on our website or on YouTube, you find lots of tutorials, you find blog posts, you find sample templates, videos, webinars, everything you can imagine. If that's not enough, please feel free to reach out to me anytime or to info, and then you can have a 30-day free trial. You can also have a free workshop to work on together or a personalized demo. It's really, really up to you. Yes, also drop us feedback. It was a pleasure to do the Docs42 class today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're gonna try it out yourself and set up your docs for the custom connectors. Of course, there's also documentation on that, which you can also find on our website under resources. And thank you very much for joining. Have a nice day. Bye.